Socrates, I despair for the world.
Alas, my dear Hypatia, you look as if you just met the monster Medusa. Why do you despair for the world?
The oracle granted me a viewing through her time machine, and I saw the future that awaits us 2,000 years ahead. Wars that make Troy seem like child's play. Weapons that can set the world ablaze. Machines eating jungles and mountains alive. Poison filling the air, land, and sea. There is no hope for us, Socrates.
Well, surely hope remains, Hypatia. Even the worst of times have always given way to better ones.
No, Socrates. I am certain of it. Only a malignant creature could wreak such havoc upon the world. We are doomed.
Well, those are strong words, Hypatia. Please tell me the reasoning that makes you so certain.
Very well. If we watch any creature acting naturally in its habitat, we see its nature in its action. Agreed?
Agreed.
Well, then does it not follow that when we watch our species acting in its habitat, we see its nature too? And does it not follow that the disasters I saw through the time machine show our violent and destructive nature?
I accept your first conclusion, Hypatia, but not your second one. Before we continue our conversation, perhaps we should ask the oracle to grant me a viewing through her time machine.
Let us go then, Socrates.
I see what you saw, Hypatia, and it brought tears to my old eyes. But I do not share your despair. When I watched closely, I did not see our species acting naturally in its habitat.
What do you mean, Socrates? Are your eyes failing you?
Not yet, my dear. What I saw were great multitudes of men and women toiling at work that caused the destruction. Yet I saw that these multitudes were controlled by very small groups of men who did no work themselves. Men wearing strange dark tunics and thin scarves tied around their necks. Without this control, the toiling men and women would never have caused such destruction. The destruction resulted from the institutions these men commanded, not from human nature.
I saw this too, Socrates. But it must be human nature to live under such institutions. We do so even today here in Athens, as do civilized people throughout the world.
We certainly do, Hypatia. But again, you should not conclude that this is human nature. Perhaps the oracle would be kind enough to turn her time machine backward for a moment, so we can view the world as it was 4,000 years ago.
Oh, Socrates, what was this? The Golden Age? Where were the palaces, the temples, the fortresses? Where were the rulers living in luxury, the armies, the slaves?
Indeed, Hypatia, none of those existed in that time. And as you saw, the people were not living in squalor and violence. Those sheep grazing over lush green fields, the towns and villages, trade ships and caravans, this society was as civilized as ours, thriving without rulers and their destructive institutions. Yet these people were human beings like ourselves. Therefore, the institutions we saw destroying the future world result from something other than human nature.
But what else could it be, Socrates? Our institutions must become destructive when societies grow and mature, the way a young man's face sprouts a beard.
Perhaps so, Hypatia, but I believe there is another explanation. One that allows us to keep our faith in human nature, and therefore our hope. When you watched that ancient society at work, did you see what made it possible? What made it more than small tribes like those that still wander in the mountains, foraging and hunting for a meager living?
You no doubt mean the fields and livestock, Socrates.
I mean that and more, Hypatia. The fields did not grow themselves. The sheep did not gather themselves into flocks. They were deliberately cultivated and tamed by the people. And the people could only do this through brilliant innovations with the help of ingenious tools, the plow, and the shepherd's crook. What sets the shepherd apart from the sheep is his knack for making tools and harnessing external sources of energy. That is truly human nature, Hypatia, our species acting naturally in its habitat.
I wish I could think so, Socrates. But this society did not last. Human nature brought forth rulers and slaves and walled cities and war. How can you dispute this?
Human action certainly brought them forth, Hypatia, so they were possible for human nature, but not natural and necessary like a young man's beard. Let us think more closely about those traits that set the shepherd apart from the sheep: making tools and harnessing external sources of energy. Suppose that some restless shepherd sat atop a hill, gazing down at the scene we just saw. He admired the great advantage he and his people enjoyed from having cultivated the crops and tamed the animals. He watched the people in the fields and villages working at their tasks, drawing this bounty from nature. Now, suppose that in a fateful vision, he imagined himself taming the entire community, so he could live at the advantage of their human energy and the bounty they created. A shepherd of men and women.
Socrates, you shock me. What a monstrous idea.
I shock you, Hypatia? Do you not see that this is precisely what our rulers in Athens are today? And those future men with the scarves tied around their necks?
Shh, such an idea could get you killed, my friend.
I have reconciled myself to that long ago, Hypatia. Let me continue. Suppose this man and some cohorts decided to make their dream come true with the same ingenuity that created the villages and fields. It took thousands of years to invent the tools and techniques for domesticating plants and animals. In order to make their dream come true, these shepherds of men and women would have to invent new tools and techniques for domesticating their fellow human beings. In particular, they would have to create new institutions that gave them control over others. A shepherd's crook for their human flock. Agreed?
Agreed.
Then, given that people were so ingenious as to tame other powers of nature, surely their ingenuity could tame communities of human beings. These new institutions would become the greatest tool ever invented, a tool for making tools of human beings. Thus, what we see today and in that future world is not our species acting naturally in its habitat. We see captive creatures and their captor, bound in an unnatural struggle, wreaking havoc upon the world. Hypatia, my dear, are you all right?
You have shaken my understanding to its foundations, Socrates. The disasters I saw through the time machine are not a result of human nature at all. Instead, they were caused by institutions that do violence to human nature and the world, grown mighty enough to terrify Zeus himself. Yet once this tool has been invented, what hope is there of stopping it?
Sometimes a little hope is all the gods give us. We must make do with what hope we have. If our nature is violent and destructive, we are doomed, as you thought at first. But if our ingenuity created this tool, the human flock may find a way to escape its shepherds and run free again before it is too late.
Then what can we do to overcome these disastrous institutions, Socrates?
You and I, my dear, nothing. After all, we are only characters in a dialogue. But those who ponder our words may work wonders even the oracle cannot foresee.